Overview. On the second anniversary of the devastating fire that left 18-year-old Fallon O'Neill marked by scars, she confronts her father, Donovan O'Neill, a former actor, during a lunch meeting. Expressing her intention to move to New York that very evening to pursue a Broadway acting career, Fallon is met with resistance from her father. He asserts that her acting aspirations perished in the fire, an incident for which he assumes responsibility, and urges her to consider an alternative career path. In response to the harshness of her father's words, a sympathetic young man in a nearby booth intervenes, asserting himself as Fallon's boyfriend. He rebukes Fallon's father, highlighting the success of actors who have overcome physical injuries in Hollywood and dispelling the need to discourage Fallon. The confrontation prompts Fallon's father to hastily exit the restaurant. Subsequently, Fallon and the compassionate stranger, Benton Ben James Kessler, share dessert and converse about his pretense of being her boyfriend. Intrigued by Ben's personality, Fallon invites him to her apartment to assist with packing. Upon introduction to her best friend Amber and Amber's boyfriend Glenn, Fallon and Ben retire to her bedroom. Ben, thoughtful, reserves a table at an upscale restaurant and assists Fallon in selecting a dress, though she hesitates due to its revealing nature. Ben reassures her, appreciating the beauty beyond her scars, a sentiment she has not heard before. Ben briefly departs to prepare for dinner, returning ahead of schedule. The evening takes a tender turn as Ben and Fallon share a moment on her bed, eventually dozing off and unintentionally missing their dinner reservation. Fallon and Ben share a heartfelt kiss and discuss their future. Adhering to Fallon's mother's counsel to avoid serious commitments until the age of 23, they devise a unique plan. They agree to meet annually on November 9th at a predetermined restaurant for the next 5 years. Despite the intimacy, they intentionally block each other on social media and refrain from exchanging phone numbers, opting instead to assign each other personal challenges. Fallon's assignments include kissing 4 boys and attending 1 audition per week, while Ben's task is to read 5 specified romance novels, preparing him to craft a novel inspired by their relationship. The following year, Fallon's flight delay prompts her to rendezvous at Ben's residence. She meets his 2 older brothers, Ian and Kyle, along with Kyle's fiancée, Jordan, who is in distress with their upcoming wedding. Fallon observes a troubling moment between the brothers, witnessing Kyle hitting Ben. Later on the beach, Ben and Fallon share a moment, culminating in Ben getting a wrist tattoo. Ben graciously drives Fallon to the airport, surprising her by boarding the plane solely to deliver homework aimed at reconnecting with her estranged father. A year later, in New York, Fallon waits for Ben at a cafe, as they still avoid sharing phone numbers. Ben calls, revealing Kyle's tragic car accident and his inability to make it. Fallon rushes to be by his side, offering solace in his grief. The two become intimate, prompting them to abandon their annual ritual and commit to a genuine relationship. However, when Fallon learns of Jordan's need for Ben's support during her pregnancy, she decides to return to Los Angeles, reinitiating their annual experiment, shattering Ben's heart. Fallon, back in Los Angeles, excitedly waits for Ben at their designated restaurant, eager to share news of her move. To her dismay, Ben arrives with his nephew Oliver and discloses that he and Jordan have become a couple. Visible overview. On the second anniversary of the devastating fire that left 18-year-old Fallon O'Neill marked by scars, she confronts her father, Donovan O'Neill, a former actor, during a lunch meeting. Expressing her intention to move to New York that very evening to pursue a Broadway acting career, Fallon is met with resistance from her father. He asserts that her acting aspirations perished in the fire, an incident for which he assumes responsibility, and urges her to consider an alternative career path. In response to the harshness of her father's words, a sympathetic young man in a nearby booth intervenes, asserting himself as Fallon's boyfriend. He rebukes Fallon's father, highlighting the success of actors who have overcome physical injuries in Hollywood and dispelling the need to discourage Fallon. The confrontation prompts Fallon's father to hastily exit the restaurant. Subsequently, Fallon and the compassionate stranger, Benton Ben James Kessler, share dessert and converse about his pretense of being her boyfriend. Intrigued by Ben's personality, Fallon invites him to her apartment to assist with packing. Upon introduction to her best friend Amber and Amber's boyfriend Glenn, Fallon and Ben retire to her bedroom. Ben, thoughtful, reserves a table at an upscale restaurant and assists Fallon in selecting a dress, though she hesitates due to its revealing nature. Ben reassures her, appreciating the beauty beyond her scars, a sentiment she has not heard before. Ben briefly departs to prepare for dinner, returning ahead of schedule. The evening takes a tender turn as Ben and Fallon share a moment on her bed, eventually dozing off and unintentionally missing their dinner reservation. Fallon and Ben share a heartfelt kiss and discuss their future. Adhering to Fallon's mother's counsel to avoid serious commitments until the age of 23, they devise a unique plan. They agree to meet annually on November 9th at a predetermined restaurant for the next 5 years. Despite the intimacy, they intentionally block each other on social media and refrain from exchanging phone numbers, opting instead to assign each other personal challenges. Fallon's assignments include kissing 4 boys and attending 1 audition per week, while Ben's task is to read 5 specified romance novels, preparing him to craft a novel inspired by their relationship. The following year, Fallon's flight delay prompts her to rendezvous at Ben's residence. She meets his 2 older brothers, Ian and Kyle, along with Kyle's fiancée, Jordan, who is in distress with their upcoming wedding. Fallon observes a troubling moment between the brothers, witnessing Kyle hitting Ben. Later on the beach, Ben and Fallon share a moment, culminating in Ben getting a wrist tattoo. Ben graciously drives Fallon to the airport, surprising her by boarding the plane solely to deliver homework aimed at reconnecting with her estranged father. A year later, in New York, Fallon waits for Ben at a cafe, as they still avoid sharing phone numbers. Ben calls, revealing Kyle's tragic car accident and his inability to make it. Fallon rushes to be by his side, offering solace in his grief. The two become intimate, prompting them to abandon their annual ritual and commit to a genuine relationship. However, when Fallon learns of Jordan's need for Ben's support during her pregnancy, she decides to return to Los Angeles, reinitiating their annual experiment, shattering Ben's heart. Fallon, back in Los Angeles, excitedly waits for Ben at their designated restaurant, eager to share news of her move. To her dismay, Ben arrives with his nephew Oliver and discloses that he and Jordan have become a couple. Visibly heartbroken, Fallon informs Ben that their experimental journey has come to an end. The following year, attempting to move on from Ben, Fallon goes out with friends and a boy she's been dating. Unexpectedly, Ben appears at the club where they are. He pleads with Fallon to come home so he can clarify his situation. Initially resistant, Fallon eventually agrees when her date takes an unpleasant turn. Ben explains that his relationship with Jordan has ended, and he and Fallon share an intimate moment. In the early morning, hungry, Fallon searches for a shirt in Ben's closet and stumbles upon his manuscript. Intrigued about the day Kyle assaulted Ben, she takes the manuscript to the kitchen to read. Shockingly, she discovers Kyle's assertion that Ben started the fire that caused her scars. Doubting whether Ben added this twist for fictional flair, Fallon turns to the prologue and learns that Ben's mother's death is somehow linked to the fire, both occurring on the same November 9th. Distressed, Fallon refuses to hear Ben's explanation when he wakes and attempts to clarify. Despite his plea for her to take the manuscript, she declines. A year elapses, and Ben remains unforgettable to Fallon. On November 9th, planning to spend the day alone, she finds a copy of Ben's manuscript on her doorstep. At her mother's insistence, Fallon reads it the next morning, discovering that Ben, at 16, found his mother's body after her suicide. Believing Fallon's father, Donovan O'Neill, was responsible, Ben ignited his classic car, unintentionally causing the fire. Ben's revelation casts the events of that night in a new, non-malicious light. She rushes to the restaurant to meet Ben, and there they pledge their enduring love to each other. Summary of Chapter 1. On the second anniversary of the devastating house fire that scarred 18-year-old Fallon O'Neill, she confronts her father, Donovan O'Neill, a once famous television actor, during a tense lunch. Eager to share her decision to move to New York for a Broadway acting career, Fallon is met with an unacknowledged anniversary. The fire left scars on the left side of her body, a constant reminder etched into her memory. Fallon holds her father responsible for the scars, as he forgot to inform the firefighters of her presence in the house during the incident. The strained relationship between father and daughter becomes palpable as Donovan disregards the significance of the anniversary. Instead of offering support for Fallon's aspirations, he dismisses her decision, asserting that her scarred appearance will hinder any chance of reclaiming her acting career. Donovan suggests alternative paths, such as pursuing higher education. Fallon, in the midst of arguing with her father, finds an unexpected ally in a young man with intense, curious eyes. Swiftly claiming to be her boyfriend, he interjects in the heated exchange, engaging Donovan in a verbal confrontation until he vacates the premises. Summary of Chapter 2. Following the confrontation at the restaurant, Ben James Kessler and Fallon decide to leave for a local frozen yogurt place to indulge in dessert. Seated there, they discuss the recent events at the restaurant. Ben earnestly convinces Fallon of his genuine intentions to assist her. Moved by his sincerity, Fallon extends an invitation for Ben to join her at her apartment, seeking his help in the daunting task of packing for her imminent move to New York. Summary of Chapter 3. Fallon and Ben proceed to her apartment for packing, where she introduces him to her best friend Amber and Amber's boyfriend Glenn. Ben, looking to create a memorable evening, secures a reservation at an upscale restaurant for dinner. Delving into Fallon's closet, he sifts through her clothes, ultimately selecting a striking black dress. Eager for Fallon to wear it, Ben's choice, however, is met with resistance, as Fallon is hesitant due to the dress revealing her scars. Despite her refusal, Ben insists, leading to a brief argument. Determined to understand and appreciate Fallon's perspective, he persuades her to let him undress her, aiming to see and acknowledge the scars she is reluctant to reveal. Summary of Chapter 4. Fallon persuades Ben to return home briefly for a shower and a change of clothes before their dinner reservation. During his absence, Ben engages in a brief conversation with his older brother Kyle, addressing his mysterious absence the night before. Returning to Fallon's apartment an hour ahead of schedule, Ben and Fallon recline on her bed. Tenderly, he traces his hands over her scars, expressing his appreciation for their unique texture. In an attempt to deepen their connection, Ben expresses a desire for Fallon's phone number. However, she hesitates and ultimately refuses, maintaining a level of distance in their budding relationship. Summary of Chapter 5. Fallon and Ben find themselves falling asleep, inadvertently missing their dinner reservation, leaving them disheartened at the thought of losing their final 2 hours together. Walking Ben to the door, their farewell takes an unexpected turn as he kisses her. This sparks a passionate exchange in the hallway, hinting at the depth of their connection. In a twist of emotions, Fallon suggests that Ben drive her to the airport. As they prepare to depart, Ben once again seeks Fallon's phone number, but she firmly maintains her stance, citing her mother's advice that she cannot fall in love until the age of 23. In lieu of a traditional commitment, Fallon proposes an unconventional plan. They agree to meet annually at a predetermined restaurant on November 9th for the next 5 years. At 23, they will reassess their feelings and decide if they are ready to be together. Adding a unique touch to their pact, Fallon and Ben assign each other homework. Fallon is tasked with kissing at least 4 boys and attending 1 audition per week, while Ben is assigned to read 5 romance novels to prepare for writing a book about their brief but intense love affair. Their unusual arrangement signifies a commitment to personal growth and the possibility of a future together. Analysis Chapters 1 to 5. In the opening part of November 9th, Fallon O'Neill's scars, both physical and emotional, take center stage as she navigates the aftermath of a life-altering fire at the age of 16. This tragic event has transformed her into a self-conscious, reclusive individual, concealing her scars with carefully chosen clothing and hairstyles. Once an outgoing actress, Fallon now shies away from the public eye, fearing judgment and rejection. In stark contrast, Ben Kessler, Fallon's love interest, enters the scene as an outgoing and carefree individual. His spontaneous decision to involve himself in Fallon's lunchtime confrontation with her father showcases his spirited nature. Described with bedhead and casual attire, Ben embodies a laid-back charm that intrigues Fallon. The novel kicks off with Fallon's contentious lunch with her father, Donovan O'Neill, a former actor. Fallon harbors resentment towards him for the scars she bears, a constant reminder of the night her father failed to inform first responders about her presence in the house fire. Her scars become symbolic evidence of her father's alleged lack of care, potentially fueled by his aspirations through her acting career. Ben's entry into Fallon's life through a pretend relationship sets the stage for the fake relationship trope, propelling them into an immediate, intimate connection. Fallon, grappling with self-consciousness and mistrust due to her scars, takes time to build trust in Ben. His compassionate treatment and genuine interest in her story gradually break down her defenses, offering a breath of fresh air and restoring her confidence. As Ben becomes a positive force in Fallon's life, she begins to challenge her comfort zone, overcoming her belief that she could never be seen as beautiful again. The pivotal moment where she reveals her scars to Ben marks a significant step in her journey, trusting him with her vulnerabilities. Fallon's decision to avoid rushing into a committed relationship based on her parents' failed marriage shapes the narrative, leading to the unique arrangement of contacting each other once a year for the next 5 years. November 9th explores themes of trust, self-discovery, and the impact of past traumas on one's relationships. The dynamic between Fallon and Ben unfolds through alternating, first-person narratives, providing readers with insights into their evolving perspectives and emotions. Summary of Chapter 6. In the subsequent part of the novel, the narrative shifts to Fallon and Ben's next meeting. An anxious Ben patiently waits for Fallon for 2 hours at their agreed-upon restaurant. Eventually, he receives a call from Fallon at a local frozen yogurt place, their primary means of communication in the absence of exchanged phone numbers. She informs him about a flight delay and proposes an alternative meeting at his house. Ben welcomes Fallon with genuine joy, noting her newfound confidence manifested in her short hair and short-sleeved shirt, bravely exposing her scars. As they ascend to Ben's room, they engage in a conversation, delving into the events and changes that transpired in the past year. The intimate setting allows them to share their experiences and deepen their connection, providing insights into their evolving relationship and personal growth. Summary of Chapter 7. Fallon opens up to Ben about a past relationship, sharing details about a boy she dated and kissed in the preceding year. As their connection deepened, they approached intimacy, but Fallon's fear and insecurity surfaced. The fire not only left her with visible scars, but also resulted in damage to her left breast when the firemen rescued her from Donovan's house. This physical trauma has created a deep-seated fear of exposing her breasts to others, intensifying her vulnerability. Sympathetic and understanding, Ben expresses a desire to see Fallon as she is. Slowly and with care, he begins to undress her, seeking to create a space of comfort and acceptance. Their intimate moment is cut short when an unexpected interruption occurs. Someone enters the room and disrupts the connection they were trying to build. Summary of Chapter 8. Ben clarifies that he shares the house with his 2 older brothers, Ian and Kyle, along with Kyle's fiancée, Jordan, the person who interrupted their intimate moment. Ben and Fallon descend the stairs to officially meet Jordan. During their conversation, Fallon discovers that Kyle and Jordan are on the verge of getting married in a few days, and Jordan is feeling the strain of wedding preparations. The eldest brother Ian, a pilot, arrives at the scene, and soon after, Kyle joins them. Kyle requests a private conversation with Ben, leaving Fallon alone with Ian. This unexpected situation sets the stage for Fallon to interact with another member of Ben's family, creating a dynamic shift in the ongoing narrative. Summary of Chapter 9. After witnessing Kyle hit Ben upstairs, Ian retreats, leaving Fallon concerned. Searching for Ben, she stumbles upon a distressing scene where Kyle physically confronts him, but Ben remains tight-lipped about the reason behind the altercation. This mysterious incident adds an unexpected layer of tension to their already complex dynamic. Attempting to shift the focus, Fallon and Ben share a dinner on the beach. The evening unfolds with a series of questions, each revealing more about their pasts and personal lives. In this intimate exchange, Fallon discloses that Ben is her first boyfriend. Their connection deepens as they share a prolonged kiss, and Ben, seized by a spontaneous decision, decides to get a tattoo. Taking Fallon along, Ben opts for a tattoo on his left wrist with the word "poetic" inscribed inside a music staff. The choice of this tattoo becomes a symbolic expression of Ben's character and adds a meaningful touch to their shared experience. As Ben drives Fallon to the airport, he accompanies her inside. During their farewell, he unexpectedly announces his intention to fly to New York the following year, fostering a sense of hope for their future. In a heartfelt goodbye, Ben provides Fallon with the name of a cafe near her apartment, signaling a potential connection in the years to come. Just as Fallon is about to board the plane, Ben reappears, surprising her with homework for the year ahead. This task involves reaching out to her father, whom she hasn't spoken to in a year, a poignant reminder of unresolved family issues. Their emotional farewell concludes with Fallon boarding the plane and leaving Ben behind, setting the stage for the next chapter in their unique relationship. Analysis Chapters 6 to 9. Fallon's annual arrival in Los Angeles marks the continuation of her unique arrangement with Ben. His unwavering commitment to wait for her, even when doubts arise, becomes a recurring theme that raises questions about his motives and the depth of their connection. Ben's claim of love for Fallon, despite her skepticism about instant love, adds an intriguing layer to their evolving relationship. During their second meeting, Fallon displayed increased confidence and openness. She admits to meeting a boy in New York and shares her experiences with auditions and attempting to fulfill Ben's homework. Despite a challenging encounter with one boy, the fact that Fallon puts herself out there reflects her newfound confidence and departure from her reclusive past. Fallon recounts her intimate experience with the boy, highlighting the emotional struggle tied to her scars, particularly her damaged left breast. Ben's angry reaction to this revelation hints at deeper emotions and trauma within him, foreshadowing a revelation that will unfold later in the novel. Throughout the day, Fallon meets key members of Ben's family, including his older brother Kyle and Kyle's fiancée Jordan. A shocking moment occurs when Kyle hits Ben, raising questions that Fallon doesn't immediately question but will later investigate on her own. In the evening, Ben spontaneously gets a tattoo on his wrist, the word "poetic" inscribed within a music staff. Fallon refrains from pushing for explanations, yet this symbolic tattoo gains significance in later events, serving as a testament to Ben's complex emotions and his connection to his deceased mother. Ben's tendency to avoid Fallon's questions and withhold information about his past paints him as an unreliable narrator. This pattern of evasion foreshadows a revelation tied to Ben's trauma, ultimately placing their relationship in jeopardy. Despite his reticence, Ben actively places himself in Fallon's path, going so far as to buy a plane ticket to give her homework. This impulsive gesture not only showcases his desire to spend more time with her, but also reveals a compassionate side, encouraging Fallon to reconnect with her difficult relationship with her father. The contrast between Ben's secrecy and his genuine concern for Fallon adds layers to his character, leaving the reader intrigued about the true nature of his motives. Summary of Chapter 10. Fallon anxiously awaits Ben at a cafe in New York, her thoughts buzzing with the plans she has meticulously arranged for their day together. The anticipation fills the air as she envisions the moments they are supposed to share. However, the atmosphere takes an unexpected turn when a waitress approaches and hands her a phone. The voice on the other end delivers a heartbreaking revelation: Ben is still in Los Angeles. The news shatters Fallon's expectations as she learns that Ben's older brother Kyle tragically lost his life in a wreck just 2 days ago. The weight of this sudden and devastating event casts a somber shadow over the day that was meant to be filled with joy and connection. Summary of Chapter 11. Ben grapples with a tumult of emotions, caught between the desire to be a pillar of strength for those around him and the overwhelming sense of loneliness. Unlike his older brother Ian, who has the support of his best friends, Ben feels isolated in his emotional struggle. The weight of responsibility intensifies as he contemplates the challenges faced by Kyle's pregnant wife, Jordan, who has withdrawn to her bedroom and refuses to engage with the outside world. The tragic circumstances surrounding Kyle's untimely death, especially on the day they were set to embark on an anniversary trip, compound Ben's feelings of isolation. The family dynamics undergo a significant shift as Ben and Ian's uncle suggest the possibility of selling the house. With Jordan likely to move in with her mother and Ian frequently absent, the idea of parting with the familial home adds another layer to Ben's emotional turmoil. In the midst of this somber atmosphere, the doorbell unexpectedly rings, punctuating the heaviness in the air. To Ben's surprise, Fallon stands at the door, providing an unforeseen but potentially comforting presence in a time of grief and solitude. Summary of Chapter 12. Following her conversation with Ben, Fallon swiftly boards the first plane out of New York. Their reunion is marked by a tender kiss, and they retire to Ben's room where, overcome by grief, he breaks down. In this vulnerable moment, he opens up to Fallon about the details surrounding Kyle's tragic accident. Summary of Chapter 13. Fallon's presence proves to be a distraction and a source of comfort for everyone during dinner, alleviating some of the collective grief. Seeking to offer Fallon solace, Ben guides her upstairs for a shower. As she didn't bring any luggage, Fallon requested a clean shirt. To avoid revealing his hidden manuscript in the closet, Ben selflessly offers her the shirt off his back. Summary of Chapter 14. As Fallon showers, her thoughts whirl with uncertainties about what lies ahead. When she rejoins Ben in bed, he is asleep but wakes up as she lies down. Playfully complaining about missing her walk from the bathroom and his shirt, Ben insists she model it for him. Fallon obliges, and he jokingly demands she take it off. In a tender moment, Ben makes Fallon feel beautiful, despite her scars. They share intimate moments, kissing and making love. Amidst this connection, Ben reveals his contemplation of selling the house after Jordan's departure, expressing a desire to move to New York to be with Fallon. Touched by the gesture, Fallon readily agrees. However, when she encounters Jordan later and learns that Ben secured a literary agent for his manuscript about their unique arrangement, Fallon realizes the potential impact of her presence. Jordan, having read a portion of the book, expresses optimism about its promise. She confesses her reluctance to return home, fearing she might burden Ian and Ben. Witnessing this, Fallon recognizes the dilemma. Allowing Ben to move to New York might jeopardize his opportunity to write the book and be involved in his nephew's life. This realization adds a layer of complexity to their relationship, forcing Fallon to grapple with the potential consequences of her decisions on Ben's aspirations and family dynamics. Summary of Chapter 15. Discovering Fallon preparing to leave, Ben attempts to persuade her to stay, but she remains resolute. In a crucial moment of honesty, he inquires whether she wishes to continue their relationship or revert to their previous arrangement. Fallon confesses her desire to return to the familiar arrangement, and with a heavy heart, Ben reluctantly lets her go. Summary of Chapter 16. Nervously awaiting Ben at their agreed-upon restaurant, Fallon grapples with the news that she has moved back to Los Angeles to pursue education. When Ben arrives, accompanied by his nephew Oliver, palpable tension hangs in the air. Ben, cautious about physical contact, accidentally reveals that he and Jordan share a bedroom. The revelation shatters Fallon, prompting her to rush to the bathroom, overwhelmed with heartbreak. Summary of Chapter 17. Surprised by Fallon's intense reaction, Ben reflects on the role reversal, realizing that she was the one who initially broke his heart. Attempting to explain the complexities of his situation with Jordan, Ben acknowledges a lack of full understanding regarding the arrangement. Despite not having the same feelings for Jordan as he does for Fallon, Ben emphasizes his commitment to putting Oliver's well-being first. Fallon, unmoved by his explanations, leaves the restaurant and Ben follows her to her car. It dawns on him belatedly that she is now residing in Los Angeles, deepening his regret and remorse for the choices made. Fallon asserts that their experiment was valuable but declares it over, refusing any possibility of meeting next year. The finality of her decision leaves Ben with a profound sense of loss and the realization that their once promising connection has come to an end. Analysis Chapters 10 to 17. Colleen Hoover introduces the theme of death through Kyle's accident, marking the first instance of mortality in the narrative, aside from Ben briefly mentioning his deceased mother. The reader is kept in the dark about the details surrounding Ben's mother and his past, as he consistently avoids answering Fallon's inquiries. Amidst the shadows of grief, Ben and Fallon share intimate moments that transform the nature of their relationship. Expressing a mutual desire to move beyond their initial arrangement towards a more official commitment, there is a glimmer of hope for a shared future despite Ben's mourning for Kyle. However, the narrative takes a poignant turn when Fallon learns about Ben's literary achievements through his manuscript from Jordan. Fallon's excitement for Ben's aspirations is tinged with a sense of personal decline. The revelation that Ben shared his book with Jordan, but kept it hidden from Fallon, adds a layer of complexity. It hints at a deeper connection between Ben and his sister-in-law, raising questions about what he might be concealing in the manuscript. Fallon undergoes significant growth, from a self-conscious girl to a young woman capable of prioritizing others over herself. Realizing that her departure from Los Angeles would jeopardize Ben's writing career and distance him from his nephew, she makes the difficult choice to revert to their original arrangement rather than having him join her in New York. It is a decision she believes is in the best interests of both herself and Ben. Ben, devastated by Fallon's choice, reacts emotionally and refuses to hear her reasoning. He immerses himself in a relationship with Jordan, a move fueled by grief and emotional turmoil. Ben's immature and self-destructive behavior foreshadows a potential revelation about a similar moment in his past. The unexpected relationship between Ben and Jordan, while seemingly born out of convenience rather than romantic love, introduces a shocking twist. Despite Ben's acknowledgement that his feelings for Jordan do not compare to his love for Fallon, the narrative leaves room for speculation about the future of these characters. Ben and Fallon's reactions to heartbreak reflect their individual personalities. While Ben tends to lash out emotionally, Fallon withdraws and pushes people away. Her response to learning about Ben's involvement with Jordan hints at a level of maturity, but her refusal to offer an explanation foreshadows her later reaction to Ben's manuscript, unveiling the source of his trauma. The complexities of their characters and relationships add layers of intrigue to the unfolding narrative. Summary of Chapter 18. Amber persuades Fallon to go out on November 9th. They get quickly intoxicated, and Fallon kisses Theodore, the boy she's been dating. Unexpectedly, Ben appears and joins them, delving into a conversation about soulmates. He confesses his belief that Fallon is his soulmate and reveals that he waited for her at their designated restaurant for hours that morning. Taking a moment away, Ben pulls Fallon into a supply closet, urging her to go home with him to explain what happened between him and Jordan. Despite her initial refusal, they return to the table. Ben candidly tells Theodore about his love for Fallon and his intention to take her home. A confrontation ensues, leading to the group being escorted out by bouncers, with Fallon finally agreeing to go home with Ben. Summary of Chapter 19. Ben discloses to Fallon that his relationship with Jordan ended on November 9th, as they both realized they were causing each other pain in their grief for other people, Fallon and Kyle. They go to Ben's apartment and become intimate. Summary of Chapter 20. Fallon wakes up early, feeling hungry. In the dark, she attempts to find her clothes but decides to grab a shirt from Ben's closet. While doing so, she discovers Ben's manuscript. Curiosity leads her to take it to the kitchen to read the scene where Kyle hits Ben. Shockingly, she learns that Ben caused the fire that nearly killed her. Summary of Chapter 21. Uncertain whether Ben portrayed this scene as fiction or reality, Fallon flips to the beginning of the book. She is horrified to discover that Ben connects the death of his mother to the fire that burned down her father's house, both events happening on the same November 9th. Summary of Chapter 22. Fallon realizes with horror that Ben set the fire that caused her injuries. Upset, she calls for a taxi and confronts Ben as she prepares to leave, and he doesn't deny what she read. Despite his pleas to explain, she refuses and tosses the manuscript out of the taxi window as it drives away. The revelation leaves their relationship in turmoil. Analysis Chapters 18 to 22. Another year has elapsed, and Fallon is convinced that her relationship with Ben has concluded due to the events of the preceding year. Surprisingly, he seeks her out at a club, displaying an unexpected level of commitment. This is noteworthy, as he had pursued a relationship with Jordan. The storyline now aligns with romantic conventions involving forced proximity and the concept of soulmates, with Ben persistently pursuing Fallon until she agrees to hear his explanation regarding the Jordan situation. Despite facing rejection, Ben remains resolute, indicating the strength of his feelings for Fallon. However, there appears to be an additional motivator for Ben, something that goes beyond the cliché of love at first sight. In a pivotal moment, Ben, Fallon's friend Amber, and Amber's boyfriend Glenn come to her defense when her boyfriend Theodore insults her. This brief but significant moment underscores the unwavering loyalty within Fallon's close relationships. It is evident that those who care for her, including her best friend and her best friend's boyfriend, would go to great lengths to protect her. Ben's persistent support for Fallon is consistent with his character, and this incident reinforces his commitment. Additionally, Amber and Glenn's actions highlight that Fallon has had the support she needed all along from her friends, a support she couldn't fully grasp due to her struggles after the fire. As anticipated, Fallon allows Ben back into her life, following her pattern of relenting once she discovers the truth about Ben and Jordan's relationship. This foreshadows a recurring cycle and provides opportunities for intimate moments characteristic of the romance genre. Fallon's ability to forgive and move on reflects her growth as a resentful individual in Chapter 1, particularly in how she distinguishes between Ben's betrayal and the standards she holds for her father. While Fallon and Ben share deep affection, Fallon exhibits a lapse in respecting Ben's privacy. She discovers his relationship manuscript and decides to read it without permission, disregarding his explicit request not to do so, a first sign of disrespect. Although the manuscript initially symbolizes potential success for Ben, it transforms into a symbol of truth as Fallon learns about his responsibility for the fire that left her scarred. Moreover, she discovers that Kyle was aware of Ben's actions, explaining the apprehensive look he gave her before confronting his brother. Kyle's fear for his brother and Fallon's potential reaction to the truth become evident. In response to Fallon choosing to resume their arrangement after their third meeting, Ben reacts impulsively. Similarly, Fallon reacts hastily to the manuscript, leaving abruptly and refusing to take the rest of it with her. This action reflects her tendency to push people away when hurt, avoiding an explanation that could alter everything. The recurring pattern of Fallon and Ben approaching a happy ending, only for Fallon to retreat, not only heightens plot tension, but also leaves readers questioning the feasibility of a happy resolution. Summary of Chapter 23. On this November 9th, Fallon chooses to spend the day in solitude within her apartment, declining Amber's company and disregarding her mother's attempt to bring her breakfast. As she prepares for bed, a knock at the door reveals an unaccompanied doorstep with a package. The package contains a note from Ben, urging Fallon once again to read his manuscript. Despite bringing the book inside, Fallon postpones reading it and goes to sleep. The next morning, she discovers her tearful mother engrossed in the manuscript. Her mother insists that Fallon must read it, asserting that she is not the only one who was scarred in that fire. Summary of Chapter 24. Reluctantly, Fallon reads the manuscript. In the first chapter, Ben recounts the heartbreaking discovery of his mother's suicide. Despite a suicide note being present, the police confiscated it before Ben could read its contents. Driven by the need to understand, Ben explores his mother's phone, revealing texts from Fallon's father, Donovan O'Neill, hinting at a failed love affair. In the second chapter, Ben, restless and enraged, surveils Donovan's house. Observing Donovan working on his classic car, Ben witnesses the news of his mother's death being conveyed to Donovan over the phone. Dissatisfied with Donovan's seemingly impassive reaction, Ben sets Donovan's car ablaze after he enters his home. The fire escalates, prompting Ben to confess to Kyle, and together they witness the news report about Fallon's injuries. Kyle instructs Ben to keep silent about the fire. Summary of Chapter 25. In the third chapter, Fallon is stunned by the revelations, but gains a new perspective on her father's actions on the night of the fire, realizing he took responsibility for it. She reaches out to Donovan via text before delving into the next chapter. Ben, devastated by his mother's death, spends the following day in bed avoiding everything. Ian confronts him, leading to a heated argument over Ben's actions. When Ian comprehends Ben's anger towards their mother, he provides him with a copy of her suicide note. Ben discovers that his mother took her own life due to terminal cancer, not wanting to be a burden on her sons. This revelation leaves Ben with a painful realization that he inadvertently caused Fallon's scars for a futile reason. Summary of Chapter 26. As Fallon continues reading, tears stream down her face. The fourth chapter of the manuscript unfolds, recounting the morning when she and Ben first crossed paths. Ben, awakening after a night of revelry at Jordan's apartment, followed her suggestion to visit the cemetery for the first time. To his surprise, he witnessed Donovan O'Neill leaving flowers on his mother's grave. Intrigued, Ben trailed Donovan to a restaurant, where he overheard the conversation between Donovan and Fallon. Despite knowing he shouldn't have interfered, Ben joined the discussion, compelled by a sense of obligation to offer Fallon a chance to ease her life. Summary of Chapter 27. Within the manuscript's pages, Fallon discovers a note from Ben. His words convey that the remaining content is familiar to her, and the intention behind delivering the manuscript isn't to seek forgiveness. Nevertheless, he expresses his commitment to be present at their designated restaurant every November 9th, patiently waiting until the day she decides to appear. Summary of Chapter 28. As the clock approaches midnight, Ben concludes his wait at the restaurant and heads to his car. To his delight, he notices Fallon stepping out of her own vehicle. A warm smile graces her face as she walks toward him, and they share a heartfelt embrace. Fallon, acknowledging her past mistake, apologizes for not heeding his explanation the previous year. In a moment of connection, Fallon reveals a new tattoo adorning her arm, an open book featuring a comedy and a tragedy mask on its pages, symbolizing her two favorite things. Ben, seized by the emotion of the moment, invites Fallon to accompany him home, a proposition she gladly accepts. Playfully, he shares his intention to propose in a year, prompting Fallon to playfully chastise him for revealing the ending. Analysis chapters 23 to 28. As Fallon delves into the manuscript detailing her relationship with Ben, all of his concealed secrets are laid bare. Initially resistant to reading it in full, Fallon's habitual response to push away painful things is challenged by her mother. Her mother, a significant influence in Fallon's life, convinces her by emphasizing that the fire's impact extends beyond just Fallon herself. Although physically appearing only once in the novel, Fallon's mother proves a crucial motivator and an unexpected advocate for Ben. The theme of knowledge alters perception unfolds as Fallon's understanding of the fire that scarred her evolves. Initially blaming her father for his role in the fire, she learns through the manuscript about his heartbreak just before the incident. Fallon also reflects on her own communication with him, realizing she had informed him of her presence via text, not a phone call. Despite acknowledging her father's selfish nature, she views him through a more empathetic lens, prompting her to reach out and attempt a fresh start. Similarly, Fallon's perspective on Ben undergoes a transformation. Initially furious upon learning he was responsible for the fire, she struggles to see it as an act driven by raw emotion rather than malice. Reading the first 4 chapters of the manuscript allows her to comprehend the fire as the impulsive action of a grieving 16-year-old. The portrayal of suicide and its aftermath is handled with complexity. Initially, the reader is inclined to feel anger toward the teenage Ben who discovered his mother's suicide. Ben, in turn, partly blames himself for not preventing it. However, his mother's explanation for her actions, wanting to spare her sons the burden of her terminal cancer, eases some of his guilt. The trauma stemming from his mother's death leads Ben to set Donovan's car on fire, inadvertently causing Fallon's scars. While not excusable, Ben's past elicits sympathy for the teenager he was and for a mother who believed she was acting in her son's best interest. Ben's manuscript becomes a symbolic bridge to a new beginning for both him and Fallon. In response, Fallon gets a tattoo, symbolizing her understanding of the manuscript and her acceptance of Ben's feelings despite the painful events that brought them together. Despite their relatively brief acquaintance and the challenges they faced, it seems Ben and Fallon are poised to move forward together, showcasing substantial growth and challenging the notion that insta-love is unrealistic. Characters. Fallon O'Neill. Fallon O'Neill, one of the dual 18-year-old narrators in the evolving storyline of November 9th, undergoes a significant journey of growth. Initially an attractive young woman aspiring to be an actress, her life takes a drastic turn at the age of 16 when a fire leaves scars on the left side of her body, triggering a struggle with low self-esteem. Complicating matters, Fallon's relationship with her father, former actor Donovan O'Neill, becomes strained as she holds him responsible for the fire and resents his failure to inform first responders of her presence in the house. Once an outgoing individual, Fallon transforms into a recluse due to insecurities stemming from her scars. However, her life takes an unexpected turn when she encounters Ben, who plays a pivotal role in convincing her that her scars are not a source of shame. Under Ben's influence, Fallon begins to reclaim her confidence. Despite this positive development, she resists starting a relationship with him, adhering to her mother's advice that one should be 23 before committing to a serious relationship, as it allows time for self-discovery. Consequently, Fallon and Ben embark on a unique social experiment, agreeing to meet annually until they both reach 23, avoiding social media contact and abstaining from exchanging phone numbers. This arrangement becomes a catalyst for personal growth for both Fallon and Ben. With Ben's support, Fallon not only gains confidence in her appearance, but also explores auditions and dates beyond the confines of their agreement, paving the way for her own career path. Throughout the novel, Fallon's exponential growth becomes evident as she sheds her reclusive behavior, embraces dating, and pursues a career aligned with her aspirations. Despite harboring anger toward her father, she makes strides toward rebuilding their relationship until the revelation of the truth about the fire. Fallon exhibits maturity by opting not to engage in an official relationship with Ben, allowing him the space to pursue his own dreams. However, Fallon's emotional reactions persist when she feels betrayed. Learning a partial truth about Ben triggers a year-long emotional struggle before she opens herself to understanding the complete truth. In this aspect, she demonstrates moments of immaturity, but upon learning the full story, Fallon displays remarkable maturity and empathy, ultimately forgiving both Ben and Donovan. Benton Ben James Kessler. Ben Kessler, one of the two 18-year-old narrators in the evolving narrative of November 9th, undergoes a complex character development throughout the novel. Initially portrayed as a college student with a penchant for reckless behavior, notably linked to underlying trauma, Ben starts as a seemingly heroic figure, coming to Fallon's aid when her father criticizes her move to New York. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes evident that his actions are not entirely selfless, revealing a more intricate character. Despite appearing as a knight in shining armor, Ben's later revelation about his selfish motives complicates his character. Even his encouragement of Fallon to embrace her scars is tainted by the fact that he is the reason for those scars. His initial efforts to boost her confidence stem from guilt over his role in causing her injuries. While Ben begins as a self-destructive character, the narrative reveals a transformation as the story progresses. He graduates from college and assumes a supportive role in his sister-in-law Jordan's life after the unexpected loss of his older brother Kyle. Ben often prioritizes others' happiness over his own, likely fueled by a sense of guilt. However, the later revelation that Ben is responsible for the fire that scarred Fallon introduces a manipulative aspect to his character, overshadowing considerations of selfishness or selflessness. This revelation challenges the perception of character growth in Ben until the novel's conclusion, where the reader gains insight into his trauma, finding his mother after her suicide, his desire to make amends, and his genuine feelings for Fallon. Similar to Fallon, Ben's evolution unfolds from a teenager reacting recklessly to trauma to a young man who refuses to give up on the woman he loves. The complexity of his character lies in the interplay of guilt, trauma, and genuine emotion, ultimately shaping Ben into a more nuanced and multidimensional figure by the end of the novel. Donovan O'Neill. Donovan O'Neill, portrayed as an antagonist in November 9th, is Fallon's father and a former actor who continues to bask in the fame derived from a successful television show in his past. Initially depicted as heartless, Donovan's character is marked by a strained relationship with his daughter, Fallon. The tension reaches a point where Fallon harbors intense animosity toward her father, even expressing wishes for violence. The root of their discord lies in Fallon's belief that Donovan intentionally caused the fire that destroyed their house when she was 16, resulting in the scars she bears. She perceives him as neglectful, purposefully forgetting her presence during the incident. The strain intensifies when Donovan fails to support Fallon's desire to pursue acting, leading her to feel abandoned when her facial scars lead to the loss of her role on a popular television show. Their difficult relationship becomes cold and remains so for over a year until Ben, as part of a mutual homework assignment, encourages Fallon to reach out to Donovan for a resolution. Unbeknownst to Donovan, there is another layer to his relationship with Ben. Following his mother's suicide, Ben discovers that she was involved with Donovan. Judging the relationship solely on his mother's tense text messages, Ben blames Donovan for her death. In a moment of anger and grief, Ben sets Donovan's classic car on fire, an act that Donovan remains oblivious to. Donovan unwittingly becomes the catalyst for Fallon's scars, their falling out, and ultimately the meeting between Ben and Fallon, shaping the novel's central plot. Despite being framed as an antagonist, Donovan reveals some nuance. He takes responsibility for the fire and, prior to meeting Fallon, visits the grave of Ben's mother. The novel concludes on a note of hope for reconciliation, as Fallon sends a text message to her father upon learning the truth about Ben's involvement in the fire. Kyle Kessler. Kyle Kessler, a minor yet pivotal character in November 9th, serves as a significant motivator for some of Ben's actions in the narrative. As Ben's older brother and Jordan's fiancé-turned-husband, Kyle plays a crucial role in the unfolding events. When their mother passes away, Kyle, attending college at the time, returns home to support his younger brothers Ben and Ian. Ben turns to Kyle for guidance after accidentally setting Donovan's house on fire. Kyle's advice to dispose of incriminating evidence and pretend the fire never happened leaves Ben burdened with guilt for years. The dynamics shift when Kyle learns of Ben dating Fallon, resulting in a heated confrontation where Kyle loses his temper and physically strikes Ben in front of her. This act becomes the catalyst for Fallon's decision to read Ben's manuscript, unraveling the motive behind Kyle's actions. Kyle's presence becomes instrumental in ensuring that Fallon discovers Ben's betrayal at the right moment. Kyle's death, a significant turning point in the story, brings Ben and Fallon closer together in their shared grief. This loss prompts Ben to make the decision to move to New York to be with Fallon. However, a sudden change of heart from Fallon, influenced by a conversation with Jordan, leads to a rash reaction from Ben, reminiscent of his impulsive act of setting the fire. The influence of Kyle's actions continues even after his brief appearance, shaping the narrative by catalyzing Ben and Fallon's initial breakup and influencing Ben's decision to postpone revealing the truth to Fallon. Jordan Kessler. Jordan Kessler is the beautiful, emotional fiancée of Ben's older brother Kyle when Fallon first meets her. She is kind and gentle, and she clearly adores every member of the Kessler family. Fallon likes Jordan, but keeps her distance due to her insecurity over her scars and the fact that the latter recognizes her from her television role. However, they get along, and Fallon finds herself comforting Jordan after Kyle's death. Jordan plays an important role in the novel because she is the reason why Fallon second-guesses Ben for moving to New York. Ben wants to be close to Fallon, but the latter learns from Jordan that she plans to stay in the family home and will need help with her unborn child. Jordan is also the one who tells Fallon that Ben has a literary agent. She shows understandable vulnerability in this moment, whereas Fallon overcomes her own in wanting Ben to remain with Jordan and continue building his career. However, this decision backfires the following year when Fallon learns that Ben and Jordan have become lovers. While far from a villain, Jordan represents an obstacle to Fallon and Ben's relationship. Themes: physical and emotional scars. The impact of physical and emotional scars is a central theme in November 9th, shaping the characters' identities and relationships. Fallon O'Neill, marked by physical scars from a traumatic house fire, experiences a profound transformation that extends beyond the tangible marks on her body. Fallon's scars become a symbol of both physical and emotional change. They alter her appearance, leading to the loss of her coveted acting job and a shift in her confidence and outgoing nature. The scars not only affect her physically, but also influence her self-perception and relationships with others. However, Ben Kessler becomes a pivotal figure in challenging Fallon's perception of herself. His acceptance and appreciation of her scars as a unique part of her beauty inspire confidence and self-assurance in Fallon. On the other hand, Ben carries his own emotional scars, stemming from the traumatic discovery of his mother's suicide. These scars manifest in self-destructive behaviors, including drinking and reckless actions. However, his encounter with Fallon becomes a catalyst for healing. Fallon provides Ben with a purpose, motivating him to focus on the future and overcome his emotional scars. The theme of knowledge alters perception is intricately woven into the narrative. Fallon's perspective, shaped by her traumatic experience of the house fire, colors her perception of events. Initially viewing her relationship with Ben as a social experiment, she undergoes a transformative journey as she realizes the profound impact of Ben's confidence and support on her life. As the story progresses, Ben's actions, influenced by his own emotional scars, lead to moments of conflict. Fallon's decision not to alter the course of their relationship, initially seen as a rejection by Ben, highlights the subjective nature of perception. Knowledge becomes a powerful tool for understanding each other's motives and overcoming misunderstandings. The revelation in Ben's manuscript about Donovan, Fallon's father, challenges her long-held beliefs. Learning the truth behind the fire and Donovan's traumatic news moments before it provides a new perspective. Despite lingering feelings of self-absorption, knowledge allows Fallon to forgive her father, illustrating the transformative potential of understanding and empathy. In essence, November 9th explores the profound impact of both physical and emotional scars on individual growth and relationships. The narrative emphasizes the importance of acceptance, understanding, and the transformative power of knowledge in altering perceptions and fostering forgiveness. Knowledge alters perception. Fallon perceives the events of November 9th through the lens of her personal experience, particularly the traumatic house fire she endured at the age of 16. Initially, she held the belief that her father, Donovan, deliberately started the fire and subsequently forgot about her presence in the house. This belief becomes a source of anger and grief in her life. However, meeting Ben on the second anniversary of the fire becomes a turning point, marking the beginning of Fallon's journey to rebuild her self-confidence with the aid of Ben's affection and support. At the onset, Fallon views her relationship with Ben as a social experiment, hoping it will yield material for a successful novel. Yet, as their connection deepens, she recognizes the transformative impact of Ben's confidence in her life. When she discovers Ben's commitment to his writing career and securing a literary agent, Fallon feels a sense of responsibility to reciprocate the confidence he has given her. This leads her to resist altering the course of their relationship, believing it to be a supportive decision. However, Ben perceives it as rejection, prompting an immature reaction, fueled in part by his own trauma. The narrative underscores how knowledge can reshape perception, highlighting Ben's inclination to respond to trauma with self-destructive behavior, affecting both himself and those around him. The theme is further emphasized when Fallon learns the truth about Ben starting the fire, an act driven by anger and grief, not malice. This revelation prompts her to forgive Ben, recognizing the unintentional nature of the harm caused. Despite her growth concerning her scars, Fallon continues to grapple with connecting with her father 7 years post-fire. However, reading Ben's manuscript brings about a transformative shift. Learning about Donovan's traumatic news moments before the fire and understanding his actions that night provide Fallon with a new perspective. Although she still views her father as somewhat self-absorbed, knowledge becomes a catalyst for forgiveness, allowing Fallon to evolve in her understanding of Donovan's motivations. In essence, November 9th intricately weaves the themes of trauma, self-destruction, forgiveness, and the transformative power of knowledge, showcasing the characters' journeys toward growth and understanding. Trauma. November 9th should be an ordinary day for Ben Kessler, but when he was 16, he woke up one November 9th to find his mother had taken her own life. The trauma of discovering his mother and making the distressing call to the police takes a heavy toll on young Ben, especially given that he was the only son living with her at the time. Struggling to comprehend his mother's motives, Ben, like many grappling with grief, seeks someone or something to blame. Trauma, an intensely ingrained emotional response to an event, becomes the driving force in Ben's life. His reaction to his mother's death involves directing his anguish towards the person he believes is responsible, Donovan O'Neill. Fueled by rage, Ben confronts Donovan, convinced that the man played a role in breaking his mother's heart and driving her to despair, a conclusion drawn from their text messages. In an attempt to punish Donovan for what he perceives as a lackluster response to his mother's death, Ben sets his classic car ablaze. However, this misguided act only results in another emotional scar, as he unknowingly inflicts his anger on the wrong person, Fallon. The revelation of Fallon's suffering leaves Ben grappling with overwhelming guilt. Ben's trauma becomes a catalyst for destructive behaviors, including drinking, acting out, and academic struggles. Meanwhile, Fallon's own trauma leads her to lose confidence in herself and withdraw from others, adopting a reclusive lifestyle. Additionally, she harbors deep-seated anger toward her father, whom she believes initiated the fire, and forgot about her presence in the burning house. The narrative paints a poignant picture of how trauma nearly derails both Ben and Fallon's lives. However, Ben's eventual honesty and the profound affection they share contribute to a positive turnaround. Their connection becomes a source of healing, allowing them to confront their individual traumas and find a path toward recovery and personal growth. Symbols and motifs. Manuscript. Ben Kessler's manuscript on November 9th symbolizes two distinct ideas. Initially, when Ben shares his aspirations of becoming a writer with Fallon O'Neill, she suggests that he write a romance novel, specifically about their unique relationship. As they embark on a 5-year arrangement of meeting once a year, the manuscript evolves into a representation of Ben's potential success as a writer and a tangible reminder of their unconventional connection. For Ben, the manuscript serves not only as a vehicle for kickstarting his writing career, but also as a space to document his personal truth. Concealing it from Fallon, the manuscript carries the weight of Ben's admission of responsibility for the fire that scarred her. It transcends a mere portrayal of their unusual romance, delving into Ben's emotional scars and his profound love for Fallon. Struggling with years of trauma, particularly stemming from his mother's death and the fire, the manuscript becomes Ben's therapeutic outlet. However, when Fallon discovers the manuscript and uncovers its secrets, it transforms into a symbol of betrayal. Yet for Ben, it continues to represent his truth, offering an avenue to explain his past actions. As Fallon reads the manuscript with newfound clarity, it becomes a catalyst for exploring the theme of knowledge-altering perception. The manuscript takes on renewed significance for Fallon, providing a means to forgive both Ben and her father for their respective mistakes. The motif of scars in the narrative functions as both a symbol and a recurring theme, delving into the impact of physical and emotional scars. For Fallon, scars are tangible reminders of her father's alleged role in setting the house on fire and his subsequent neglect of her presence. These scars symbolize Donovan O'Neill's indifference to her health, safety, and well-being. Additionally, they signify the loss of Fallon's television career and her struggles to secure acting roles in New York. Ultimately, these physical scars become a hindrance to her perception of finding love. When Fallon encounters Ben, he perceives her scars as beautiful, and his admiration contributes to elevating her confidence. Deep within herself, Fallon acknowledges that everyone carries scars, stating, "A lot of them are even worse than mine. The only difference is that mine are visible, and most people's aren't." This perspective aids her in combating her own insecurities. Unbeknownst to her, Ben is among those individuals with invisible scars. While Fallon's scars manifest visibly, physically, Ben's scars remain concealed emotionally. Ben refrains from disclosing his scars to Fallon because they are intricately linked to hers, given that he is the cause of her scars. However, when Fallon eventually learns about Ben's trauma from discovering his deceased mother and the guilt he harbors for causing her scars, she comprehends that his emotional scars are just as profound as her own. In the end, she reassures him that sometimes people make mistakes, aiming to alleviate his guilt. This act of kindness seeks to restore some of the confidence that his scars have taken away, mirroring how he made her feel beautiful despite her scars. Donovan's car. Donovan's classic car only briefly appears in the novel, but it is what brings Ben and Fallon together in the first place. Donovan is working on the car the night Ben drives to his house to get a look at the man who broke his mother's heart. Ben fixates on the car as Donovan gets a phone call informing him of Ben's mother's death. The teenager wants Donovan to prove he cares, to take out his grief on the car, but he doesn't. In this moment, Ben wonders, would Donovan be more upset over his precious little classic car going up in flames than he was over my mother's death? Donovan's classic car symbolizes Ben's anger and grief. The car is a physical manifestation of Donovan's supposed indifference and is a tangible thing that Ben can use to vent his anger, as Donovan doesn't. By lighting the car on fire, he takes back some of the control he lost over losing his mother, and it gives him something other than his mother to blame. Once his anger is spent, Ben is free to grieve his mother. Tattoos. Tattoos hold a symbolic meaning of love for Ben, his mother, and Fallon. In Ben's teenage years, he questioned his mother about how she knew she was in love. She pointed to her tattoo, which featured the word poetic inscribed within a music staff. She conveyed that falling in love with Ben's father was akin to combining two of her favorite things, poetry and music. Ben, recalling this story, decides to get the same tattoo as his mother the moment he realizes his love for Fallon during their second meeting. Although he doesn't explicitly explain the tattoo's meaning to Fallon, it serves as a symbol of his love for her and his admiration for his mother. The relationship between Ben and Fallon is marked by complexities arising from half-truths and misunderstandings. When Fallon reads Ben's manuscript and comprehends the depth of his emotional scars, she suddenly grasps the significance of Ben's tattoo. In an effort to convey her understanding, Fallon decides to get a similar tattoo on her wrist, a depiction of an open book with a comedy and a tragedy mask, representing her passion for books and acting. This tattoo becomes a symbol of Fallon's love for Ben and her newfound comprehension of the shared tragedy that binds them. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If so, we would appreciate you writing a review. Thanks for your purchase. CB Publishers.